Welcome to another edition of Good Cards Gone Bad. Today we're going to talk about the Two of Cups at Angie's request. My friend Angie on Facebook. Hi, Angie. The Two of Cups is a really interesting card because most people think that is one of the most positive cards in the tarot deck, especially for love and romance. And it is a great card. I consider it the soulmate card, in fact. But we're going to talk about the dark side of it today because sometimes that gets glossed over or ignored altogether. The first deck we're going to look at is the Snowland deck, but because Ron's sleeping, I can talk about the dark side of Snowland cards, which he would not approve of probably. But now if you look at this card, you see two snowmen, a snowman and a snow woman, but it could be any gender or any orientation. But notice they're extending beyond the cups, and that is not a bad thing. We have to extend ourselves to others in order for intimacy to occur. We have to have our defenses lowered to allow love in, to be permeable, to have love going out and in. But in the dark side, this is also the inability to have healthy boundaries, and it's crossing your own boundaries and getting into someone else's space. You know, there's a saying that marriage is 50-50, but then I have heard a even better quote that says marriage is 100-100, meaning 100%, 100%. And it's not necessarily a marriage card. I mean, that's intimacy, so it could be amongst friends, it could be, I suppose, mother-daughter. It could be any type of relationship, as well as intimate romance, romantic relationships. But a dark side of that is not keeping your own sense of self and your boundaries, and also not bringing a sense of wholeness and looking to someone else to complete you. That makes me nervous when I hear people say, oh, he completes me, or she completes me, or I couldn't live without the person, because it indicates to me that there's a gaping hole there, and they're looking to the other person to be the puzzle piece that makes it all better. And the thing about that is, if you're not 100% or whole on your own, then what happens if that person dies or leaves you or something happens? Do you lose your sense of self? There's a great amount of devastation that can occur if you have your identity wrapped up in someone else. And you know, the Snowland, they haven't gotten there. We'll look at some other cards, but if you can see that the cups are extended beyond the boundary. So when you see an image like that, be reminded, are my boundaries healthy? Then we have the Heart Tarot. This is from Lo Scarabeo. And notice they're very in love and enmeshed. But notice he's almost dropping his cup. I don't know if you can see that. Almost dropping his cup into the water. This reminds me to some extent of that popular erotica book series, Shades of Grey. I've never read it. I won't read it. It's not my thing by a long shot. But I was talking to a fellow author of mine, a friend of mine, a few weeks ago, and she was saying how she was talking to her hairdresser, and she thought the Shades of Grey series was very romantic, and she actually said, I wished I had somebody that loved me as much as the main character does for the woman. And we were talking about how twisted that is, and how that some women think that if a guy is checking up on them all the time, trying to control their every move, that is love. And I'm sorry, that isn't love at all. That is a very unhealthy relationship. There's a book I read last year. It's called Into the Darkest Corner. It's really, really good. If you're into that Shades of Grey stuff, or if you think love is having a guy check up on you and control your every move and what you wear and what have you, read this. It's called Into the Darkest Corner. And this was of course it would go upside down so you can't see it. This was a proof, so you can't see the author. It's Elizabeth Haynes, and she was a UK writer. Fantastic, but it goes to show the warped side of intimacy. So again, this is the Heart Tarot by Lo Scarabeo, and notice that he's enmeshed. They're enmeshed together, and as a result, the Two of Cups can also be a codependency card. When somebody is just so codependent, they have no sense of self, and so a good book for that, if you find yourself in that kind of relationship, would be a book like Melody Beattie's Codependent No More. Another one is the Whimsical Tarot, They're in the honeymoon phase of a relationship. But notice how there is a person on the island that they're moving away from. The thing about when you're so wrapped up in someone else, with someone else, and there's the honeymoon phase, is that the people and circumstances that you've neglected while you were in that honeymoon phase, they tend not to be there when you get back to them when you're ready. So it feels good to be in love and have that rush of endorphins and emotions. But the Two of Cups ill aspected or reversed or a dark side of it is to be mindful of the other people around you, and even your health, your body, your own emotional health, because if you do not tend to it and you're so wrapped up into this other person, well, when the honeymoon phase ends and there you are, those people may very well be gone. You've sailed away, so to speak, and they're left on an island by themselves. Let's look at the mythical goddess tarot. We see two dolphins cavorting. It's the Two of Seas in her deck. When I see this, it reminds me of the yin yang symbol, and that is a balance between the masculine and the feminine, the active, the passive, the aggressive, the light, the dark, the fiery, the water, the logical, the emotional, the instinctual. There has to be a balance in a healthy relationship. It can't be all emotions or all logic. I mean, unless you're Dr. Spock and you've got another Vulcan, you know. But, so the Two of Cups, when I see a card like this, it's also, if it's a bad card, so to speak, it's saying it can remind us to check in to see if our energies are balanced, the masculine and the feminine, and all those things that it entails, and it has nothing to do with gender. You know, masculine and feminine is just a way to give it an attribution. You know, the black and the white. There is no bad or good, so to speak. But this is also a reminder to keep our balance in relationships. Okay, let's look at, lastly, the Oracle Tarot. This is by Lucy Cavendish. This was published by Hay House. Another bad aspect, again, remember when I said in the last episode, when we were talking about the Three of Cups, when I say bad, it's relative. I mean, of negative import, undesirable, the things that can go wrong with the card. So when I say bad, that's what I mean, you know. So this is the Two of Cups. And the dark side of this is, when I see this, I think of what I call stupid love. Notice they're into each other, the steam from the mugs is forming a heart, but above them, which they're oblivious to, is a porthole with clouds. And I see that as representing the element of air, or logic, the mental realm. And stupid love, I feel, are those relationships where a person keeps going back to an abusive partner. Women who make excuses for their partners when they treat them poorly. Rihanna defending Chris Brown and going back to that after he busted her face in. Stupid love. Not using the brain, not using the mental aspects, and you know, I know some of you might say, well, you know, you don't understand about the domestic abuse psychology. Oh, actually I do. I minored in psychology. But the person needs to get help, and help is oftentimes in the form of the mental cognitive realm, cognitive psychology, a retraining of the mind and our belief systems, with the help of a therapist. And I've noticed that some of these women, not just women, but guys too, they go back in the same type of relationship over and over again. So don't be stupid. Value yourself, value your boundaries, become a 100% whole person. Ideally, before you enter an intimate relationship with someone else, because in intimacy, that is where your flaws will get magnified. If you can't maintain an intimate relationship, you may want to see a therapist. Because intimate relationship is what can help highlight and show what our flaws are, and show where we have boundary issues, and show where we may be codependent or unhealthy in the balance of our energies. So the Two of Cups has amazing gifts, but it can also have amazing challenges. So keep those in mind when the Two of Cups shows up for you in a reading. And thank you for being with me for the dark side of the Two of Cups, really known as the soulmate card. But sometimes you never know. So keep those boundaries strong, your sense of self, and know who you are. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.